During the liturgy on Holy Thursday, we celebrate two very important parts of our faith: the institution of the ordained priesthood and the Eucharist. Jesus instituted the priesthood when he told his apostles sitting around table with him to do this in memory of me. Jesus also gave an example of priesthood in the washing of the disciples' feet. But this is not just an example for ordained priests. Rather, it's a model for all of the priests of the baptized to follow. You see, when we were all baptized, we were baptized as priests, prophets, and kings. We all share in the priesthood of Jesus Christ. We may not all be ordained priests, but we are still called to make sacrifices and to offer praise and thanksgiving to God. And Jesus gave us a perfect model for all priests of the baptized in washing the disciples' feet. You see, priests, whether they be ordained or lay, are not dignitaries or people of power of which we're to lord that power over others. Jesus explicitly tells us in the gospel not to do that. Rather, priests are to be servants, and we're to lead through our service. This is why Jesus said to Peter on that night that unless Peter allowed Jesus to wash his feet, he could not share in the kingdom of heaven. To which Peter responded, "Lord, don't just wash my feet, but wash my whole body." You see, we're to go out and to wash the feet of the disciples. But not just the disciples as in all those who share in our baptism, but we're to be servants to all people, bringing everyone to Jesus. This is why it's great that Pope Francis now officially allows anyone to get their feet washed on Holy Thursday. Before, it could only be 12 men, but now everyone is invited to come. Men, women, children, the representatives of the parish should be getting their feet washed that night. Because all of us are disciples of Jesus, and we're all called to share in that model of servant leadership. But Jesus did institute the ordained priesthood on that night of his Last Supper. And he did that when seated at table with his 12 apostles, those 12 men whom he called by name in the scriptures to follow him. When he took bread and wine, and he said to them, "Take this, all of you, and eat of it, drink of it, for this is my body, this is my blood. Do this in memory of me." Jesus wanted those 12 apostles, those 12 men, to bring him to all of the disciples, to all people, to share him in the Eucharist. Because the Eucharist is not a symbol of Jesus, but it is actually who he said it is at that Last Supper. My body, my blood. After Jesus' triumphant resurrection, the two disciples on the road to Emmaus, they met with Jesus, but they didn't recognize him. It wasn't until Jesus broke the bread, it wasn't until Jesus gave them the Eucharist that they recognized him. Jesus is truly present in the Eucharist. That's why we venerate the Eucharist, and we pray to the Eucharist, and we worship Jesus, God, in the Eucharist, because he is the Eucharist. This is why on Holy Thursday we have such a beautiful and solemn celebration around this most blessed sacrament. This is why we have a grand procession, moving the Blessed Sacrament to an altar of repose. so that we can sit and wait with Jesus until he rises again on that glorious third day. And so, my brothers and sisters, as you come to your parish church on Holy Thursday, remember these things as you see them take place, as you hear them in the Word, during the liturgy of the Word, and when you see him in the Eucharist. Most importantly, become who you receive. Be that servant leader Jesus is calling us to. Don't be afraid to wash the feet of Jesus' disciples. Don't be afraid to be Jesus. May God continue to bless you, and I pray that you have a blessed Triduum and a glorious Easter.